Good afternoon and a warm welcome on behalf of Bangalore Sahodaya School Complex Association for a workshop on career in wildlife and ecology. We have with us Mr. Jay Sharma and Mr. Sharat Champati, the renowned naturalist and wildlife educators who will be taking us through the session. May I now request Mrs. Geeta Subramaniam, Principal Euro School and Vice Chairperson, Bangalore Sahodaya, to formally introduce the speakers and extend a warm welcome to them. Over to you, Geeta Madam.
Thank you, Manila. On behalf of Bangalore Sahodaya School Complex, it gives me great pleasure in welcoming the resource persons for today, Mr. Sharat Champati and Mr. Jay Sharma. And I extend my warm welcome to all other participants also. Now, if I go on to introduce Mr. Sharat and Mr. Jay Sharma at length, and the introduction can go on and on because they have so much achievements to their credit. But I will keep it brief.
So you said me.
Now, to introduce Mr. Sharat Champati. Mr. Sharat has been an ardent wildlife enthusiast for the past 30 years. Having grown up by reading books by Jim Corbett, his tries with wildlife was sparked off by a trip to Jim Corbett National Park way back in 1982. He is a postgraduate in sociology from Delhi School of Economics. While dabbling in various professions, he was chosen as the chief naturalist for Jungle Lodges and Resorts, which is a pioneer in ecotourism in India. I would request everyone to mute their microphones, please. He has spearheaded the training and consultancy wing of JLR. He has also worked closely with Karnataka Forest Department in various field programs, including wildlife census operations. Mr. Sharat has traveled extensively to the wildlife sanctuaries in India, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Madagascar, Kenya, Tanzania, Ethiopia, South Africa, just to name a few. Mr. Sharat is now based in Bangalore and is a freelance naturalist and consultant. He is an associate director at Evolve Back Resorts, formerly Orange County. He is a lead trainer for Karnataka Ecotourism Board. He regularly leads wildlife tours to Africa, Arctic, and Antarctica for Planet Wildlife. He was also a part of the core team who produced Wild Karnataka. Welcome, Mr. Sharat Champati. Now, Mr. Jay Sharma is a trained and certified environment educator and naturalist by profession, a passionate wildlifer by heart, and an entrepreneur by destiny. He is an avid trekker, a skilled tracker, specialist, excited about big cats, birds, and has a strong willpower, has a deep understanding of Indian forests and a great respect for nature. He has over 25 years of rich and practical experience in nature, wildlife, and environment education. He is a trained and certified eco-volunteer for Karnataka Forest Department and ecotourism. He is the chief trainer for Anubhuti program, an annual initiative of Forest Department of Madhya Pradesh. He has participated in 8 tiger census between 1995 and 2018 in various tiger reserves and national parks. He has also participated in 6 elephant census between 2003 and 2019. He has organized more than 50 nature study camps for over 3,000 school children and college students. He organized teacher training workshops in Bhopal and Bangalore to create an awareness in biodiversity and environment protection. He is a convener for Science Center, Gwalior and Bhopal to promote environment and science education in school. Welcome, Mr. Jay Sharma.
Thank you.
Now, over to Mr. Sharath and Mr. Jay to carry on with this session. Once again, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. First of all, very good afternoon to all the principals, vice principals, teachers, and our dear friends, students. It's a great honor and pleasure to be present on this platform. It's a huge opportunity for us naturalists to present to the great audience here. And special thanks to Manila ma'am and Geeta ma'am for giving us this opportunity to inspect whatever we have learned, pass on the learnings, because education is never completed with you. It is completed only when you impart it, when you pass it on. With that motto, we have been always passing on our learnings, our findings. So we again thank you, and we begin the session. And Sharath is my trainer and my guide and my mentor. So he's always with me, and thanks Sharath for being today with me. So we'll start the presentation. Yeah, we will be talking about wildlife, environment, and ecology. Now, careers in wildlife and ecology, that's the main theme of the presentation today. But moreover, it's not only for science graduates, not only for the people looking at career options, it's also for common citizen. It's also for all the non-science students or teachers or citizens. What are we getting from ecology? What are we, why are we present? What is Earth doing to us? What are we giving it back? So it's like a transformation of life towards sustainable future. That's our main motto of all these presentations, or the awareness about wildlife, environment, and ecology. So we will be talking about details. Now this will be the overview. Why should we think about ecology and environment? Why should we care for it? What is my passion? Can I convert my hobbies into careers in wildlife and ecology? Now there are any number of streams available. We will be restricted to wildlife, ecology, and environment, as our focus is on this. Career planning, how do we do, when do we do, what are the entry levels, how to go about it. We'll try to analyze, understand and analyze that. The various streams and substreams of life sciences, what are these, how do we enter, and where are these sectors, which sectors do take us. If I'm a science graduate, which are opportunities in fields, and which are the sectors in government, non-government, private, and then NGOs and freelancing. We'll be looking at those options. We'll be touching few top universities and colleges in these fields, because if we cover up complete, I need 3 days presentation. Good institutes are there across the globe. What we do, how we nurture children in schools at a young age, how we guide them to fulfill their careers or fulfill their wishes. And then we'll have some time for queries. We'd like to answer whatever queries or questions are there from the teachers or audience, and like to resolve the problems. So this is the first one. I think everybody loves color. Everybody loves nature. I'm sure nobody on this platform or on from the audience will say, I don't like color, I don't like nature. But you'll also notice one thing. There are only small things, or there are only plants or butterflies and flowers. Why are there not big animals here? I leave that question to be answered in the last. You can either answer it in the chat box, or we'll answer it later. Why big animals are not here in colorful photos? So that is colorful, this is colorless. Now these two pictures will, I think, ignite the thought. Why should we think of career in ecology? Why should we think about conserving nature? Why should we think about protecting our nature, minimize pollution, keep it clean, save wildlife? Because that's the very base of our own existence. This is what we have done. Can we give the credit to any other animal here? I'm sure no. It's only us. For our development, for our benefit, for our selfish requirements, we have done this to the Mother Earth. This picture, I think, puts it all right. This is from a marathon for Save Earth Marathon. I'm not putting the country's name here, but you can understand it's some foreign country. But who is benefited? Who takes the credit? Is it the agency who is conducting it? Is the people who are participating, or is the blame going to the earth? Or are we cleaning it really? Are we able to save it through these kind of acts? So in all up slides, you will see lots of photographs. We feel that photographs project the message or convey the message much better than words, much better than sentences. And 90 to 95% photographs are taken by me only. I take very few photographs from the net, only some digital photographs or some graphs I'll be using. Otherwise, it will be all be ours, so that we use it for education purpose. That's also part of career in ecology and wildlife. Where do we go from there? So I think my answer is partly answered in the first two slides. Ecology and environment is everything, from the tiniest of the organisms, what we don't see, to the largest of the mammals which roam here freely, to the reptiles, to the birds, to the predators and the prey. Moreover, us, we are responsible for this protection, for conserving, because it's the very purpose of our own existence, which we should be doing it for that. We should not deviate from that. We should not, yes, development is needed. Yes, growth is needed. Yes, we have to utilize natural resources. At what cost? There's a word called sustainable. We'll come slowly to that. So we have to develop our living lifestyle or career based on that. This pandemic has taught us everything. We have seen in 2 months how much the sky has got cleaner, how much the clouds have got cleaner, how much the water has got cleaner. We've seen bird life, wildlife, which was never seen in urban areas, coming to our cities, near our homes. So like that, you give life or the wildlife an opportunity to regrow or regroup, they will take over all the area. So it's like, we don't want that. We want them to be left in their area, let them live there happily, give them their protected area, that's their home. We get benefit, we take, utilize, but give it back. If we don't have two-way relationship of taking and giving back, we are heading towards disaster that we are already witnessing. We don't need further proofs of the way global temperatures are going up, climate change is happening, floods are happening, droughts are happening, now this pandemics. Fortunately or unfortunately, I'd like to add one small word here, that pandemics are the only way to control the human dominance on the earth. We have no other way. We have wars here and there, but yes, pandemics are the natural way of earth to respond to the atrocities or the imbalance we create. So we know the realization or the importance of ecology and conservation. Now, right, we go back to our childhood. I'd like to think about what were you in the childhood? What you wanted to be? What did you like? I'm sure you'd love to run behind birds, catch butterflies, pick up an insect and then get beaten up by your parents, climb up a tree, fall down, break a leg. That's part of growing. That's nature. But slowly, as when we grow up, these things are ignored or rather sidelined. No, study this. That will not give you a job. No, study this. That will only divert you. No, study. So our mind is only like a horse in a tanga. We are only forced to look at just straight direction, study, and think of a career. So all those beautiful nature, colorful nature are sidetracked, are overlooked. But no, today is the time. In this presentation will show why you should focus and pay attention to the interest and hobbies of your children if they are interested in nature, wildlife, ecology. There are plenty of resources, plenty of options, plenty of opportunities in the careers, and more than careers, happy living, medicine-free living, we call it. So the more you are in jungle, the more you are outdoor, you are less dependent on medicines. You're fit, you're active, you breathe fresh air, you're out of pollution. That's the way we look at it. There are some animals here. Again, I'll keep asking questions and I'd expect the answers to come, or we'll answer that. This is an animal. found in central and India, now also found in Northeast and Corbett National Park. It's a very endangered, highly endangered animal. I'd like you to name in the chat box, or probably will answer in the last. So you see children walking here in the jungle, children playing games in the jungle. This is how we should grow. This is how we should learn. And as young as 6 years, 7 years, we take them to forest and teach them. So the interest is there. Now what next? How do we take it forward? What are the ways to guide them further? Yeah, this is a big thing. This is always like grinded in our mind. Career, career, career.
Yeah.
We take life science, or you have only two choices. Better you either become doctor or you become engineer. Rest of the fields are not going to give you respect. Not going to give you good bride. Rest of the field are not going to give you handsome pockets, right? No, that's totally wrong. We have n number of fields in life sciences. We have beautiful features in these. How do I plan? When do I plan? That's a big question. Again, we feel, let the child come to 9th, 10th. As a child, myself, I wanted to be a pilot one day, next day an engineer, third day a ship captain, fourth day a truck driver, fifth day a doctor. I don't know. Every day I wanted to become something else. So this is a part of growing. What we see, something always gets imprinted on our mind. My first interaction with the wild was at the age of 5, when I was sitting on a tree in a camp with my father. And then I heard a tiger growl and I jumped from the tree and broke my leg. I was first beaten up and then taken to hospital. So it was, since then I've been chasing tigers and would have seen more than 200 tigers in the wild while walking. That's the passion. And we are still excited seeing another tiger. So how do I plan? When do I plan? We'll guide on that. Right age is the young age. It's not necessary that we go to 10th and 12th to select such subjects, science, maths, I want to become an engineer. No, you can have a hobby, continue with it. As a young child from class 4th, 5th, 6th, participate in competitions. You are good in painting, you're good in photography, you're good in recital, you're good in quiz, participate. We should guide the children, we should support them, give them the exposure. Today we have every information available at a press of a button. Google auntie. We don't have to go far. We don't have to search books. We don't have to go globetrotting to look at these informations. Take that support, take that knowledge, guide the children. You come to class 9, 10, 12th, you have certified courses. There are many organizations, NGOs, we do it. There are certified courses. These certificates like NCC certificate, NSS certificate or sports certificate give you a good balance, give you a push, gives your resume a star, which helps you as a social counselor or a social worker. It helps you attaining your path in the careers in future. Like there's a course called IYAP, International Youth Awareness Program, which is mandatory for anybody looking at studies abroad. Do these courses whenever possible in school time. Everybody has 24 hours, everybody has 365 days. It's how much extra effort we take in will decide where we can head or what is our goal. There are undergraduate courses in BSc, BTech. Again, I'm limiting to life sciences. I'm not taking or touching up subjects other than that. So institutes like IISc, you can get in through KYBAY in undergraduate courses, then take up higher courses and so on. And it's a cream of scientists which walks out from there. Post-graduation courses, MSc, MTech, these are useful to further uplift your career, go into higher positions, go into higher levels directly. Like there are, if you take UPSC, IFS, you got to be a postgraduate to directly be eligible for participating in those exams. If you're graduate or postgraduate, you can also participate through state level exams. So there are various options available, but these are the steps of attaining or those levels of courses which will enhance your careers. Further studies, you can pursue MPhil, a PhD. I think in the NEP or the new education policy, we are going to remove this MPhil. Some new courses will come, some new levels will come. We should be ready and prepared for that. In jobs, you can always add on to your resume. You can always add on to your experience. See, you may be I have friends who are CA, who are lawyers, who are into wildlife, who are making wildlife films, who are teaching their own surroundings or conserving their own colony. That's enough as a citizen. So in jobs, you can always pursue courses in internships, in the form of internships, research and development, and grow on. So there's no limit to the age. I recently read an article where a 95-year-old gentleman got a degree which he wanted to pursue 50 years back. So there's no age. Age is just a number. We have to be prepared. We should have to be open and learn with that. So we got a basic small idea of the levels of entries from school, what we can do to undergraduate to college, and what are the courses available. Further and talk about details of life sciences, or what are the streams available. Think over it. This is only few of them which I have highlighted, and among them also the green highlighted ones like the botany, biotechnology, bioinformatics, bioacoustics, ecology, evolution, wildlife conservation, veterinary sciences. We will be touching them because that's related to today's presentation. It's a vast field, very vast. If, as I said, if we take individual topics and individual opportunities or scopes, we need 3-day presentation. Still, it may not get over. So these are the streams of life which, apart from biology or apart from medical, we can always look at. There are many such students whom we have trained have left their regular field of medical or other engineering background, have come back to wildlife or ecology, or have continued as a passion, as a part-timer, as a volunteer, as a freelancer in this line. I myself done that. I've been in corporate world for 20 years, worked in marketing and all, but have been always associated as a freelancer and trained. Whatever time I used to get, have passed on the information or the knowledge to school children, to individuals, to families. So these are the scopes. We'll touch one by one a bit on each and see how the scope and sub streams are available. This is a wide, broad scope. Environmental science, it's an interdisciplinary term which has everything from physical, biological, chemical, everything it integrates: ecology, biology, chemistry, physics, zoology, entomology, all logies. I'm not reading at all. It's our perception. No, it's so. I may be interested in soil science. Somebody is interested in oceanography. Take that. There are huge and multiple scopes available there. It's not earlier like in our grandparents' time, passing 10th or passing 12th was supposed to be highest education. Then it came out to graduation, BSc or BCom or LLB. Then it became MSc or PhDs. Now there's no limit. I see people still doing courses. I must say pursuing a lot of courses. How and well you keep chiseling up yourself, how well you are upgraded to the surroundings, or you're aware about what's happening around you, and you keep the knowledge, keep this open, keep the brain open. That's the fundamental of learning. So environmental science gives you these opportunities. There's another wing of environmental and climate change fields where you have working as scientists, test labs, research and development. We can look at education, working in institutions as lecturers, professors, teachers, as educators in ecotourism resorts or organizations, which my friend Sharath will throw light upon a bit later. Hospitality industry. Then, as I said, citizen science, volunteering and interns. There are lots of commerce or art students coming to us and say, sir, I'm not a science graduate, but I want to contribute to Tiger Census. I want to do some volunteering. Beautiful NGOs are there. Beautiful opportunities are there. Forest department themselves welcome such volunteers or interns to take up such studies or help them as volunteers. Environmental law, I'm sure everybody will agree with me how good this industry and how powerful this is. You can really involve yourself and highlight an area, something wrong happening in your area through environmental law, journalism. Bring it to the notice of the society, bring it to the notice of people or the decision makers if something is happening good or bad, to correct it. So journalism is again picking up. There are plenty of options available in this. So you can note down whatever interests you. We can always, this will be, I think, available on recording also. You can see it later also. So n number of options are there in environment as a broader perspective. Part of environment is wildlife, which is this bird. This is not found too much in urban locality, but it's a beautiful bird. And this one, again, if you have gone on safaris, you would late evening you'll see this eyes shining from the safari trucks or buses or jeeps. We'll answer this later, or people who know can answer always in the chat box. Now, this is the main topic of our discussion today, or our presentation today, the wildlife and ecology. What are the fields available in wildlife and ecology? I think my colleague, my partner, my guide, my mentor, Sharath will throw more light on this. Wildlife conservation, that is Indian Forest Services and IFS and SFS. Sharath, I hand it over to you.
Okay, first of all, thanks to Jay and Manila for having me here on this workshop or webinar, you can call it. And it's a pleasure to try and mentor and guide some of the teachers and students into what the scope of what is there in wildlife ecology and life sciences and rest. So Jay wanted me to highlight on the conservation part of it. The interesting thing about wildlife conservation is that it's a need of the hour, like he just mentioned, and other teachers also mentioned. We are really shown the mirror by the pandemic now in terms of the, I would say, unsustainable exploitation and disturbance to the natural resources we have on this earth. For example, the recent events like fires in Amazon or bushfires in Australia, the locust invasion to Africa, I mean from the Middle East, Africa and India, all of them are a result of man's exploitation of natural resources beyond a sustainable limit. It's ultimately that we are dependent on natural resources for our livelihoods, for a lot of other things, but what's happening is it's going beyond sustainable limits, and that's what we are seeing, including the present day pandemic. So conservation has a lot of scope. Directly, if you want to look at it, directly meaning direct careers which are there in conservation, two main things come up. One is the Indian Forest Services. It's called the IFS, which is not a part of the main civil service selection, which is the UPSC civil service exams, which the results have come out recently, which basically has the IAS, IPS, IRS and others. That exam is a separate exam. IFS is by itself, it's an independent exam also, independent service, and all science graduates can apply for it. Every year there's a selection process which starts with a preliminary and then a main exam and then followed by an interview. It's less competitive than the main civil services. So I'm not saying that it's easy or something, but it's less competitive, and that gives you, if you succeed in that, you'll get selected into the Indian Forest Service, and you can serve in the forests across India, depending on the state you are allotted to. Similarly, there's a state forest service available in every state. And you can directly get selected as a ACF, Assistant Conservator Forest. For that also you need to have a science graduation, or engineering background is also fine. So these two are a lot of times I've seen youngsters who got interested in wildlife later on, and they talk about, oh, we didn't know that there is the Indian Forest Service or the SFS. So it's good that very early in your school, let's say 8th or 9th standard, if you come to know, you can aim for it. And similarly, in this list, if you see in this slide, there are others, for example, wildlife habitat management. A lot of IFS officers are directly involved in that. Then if you get into any of the institutes, like further slides will show you, for example, the Wildlife Institute of India, you will be involved in the wildlife habitat management. Then zoo management is also linked to that. I will come to the one which is naturalists in the wildlife tourism sector. I am one of those, so I can from my personal experience. So all the national parks in India, especially the main ones, have wildlife resorts which are there to take the visitors to the national park. People come and stay there as visitors or guests, and they spend 2 or 3 days, sometimes more days. and they would be guided by naturalists. And these naturalists are very important. They're like the keys to the national park, and their keys open up the national park, and they guide the visitors and give an interpretation of what's happening in the national park, and open up your eyes and ears to the beautiful wildlife and nature which is there. So most of the resorts have naturalists, and that offers a very good career path for many of the youngsters who are interested in nature and wildlife. And similarly, wildlife photography, the big opportunities have opened up in the last 10 years especially, and you can get into professional photography and also filmmaking. To give a simple example, in the film I was involved in making, Wild Karnataka, which has come out recently, we have 25 cameramen and women who were a part of the crew. So that's the kind of a scope which is there, and you can be professionally involved also in wildlife filmmaking. I wouldn't say new emerging field, but it's a recently emerged field, and it gives great opportunities. Thank you, Jay. You can take it further.
Thanks, Sharat. So, as he mentioned about wildlife conservation, in this there are subfields like endangered species. Once you are into forest services, you have to look after the entire forest as a conservator, as a responsible person for that. Whether it's tree cutting, whether it's protection of the animals, whether it's disease to the animals or any species in that. So you have to take care of everything, and also the dependency of the villages, the education and the awareness of the villages. So in this, there are many such animals which have been pushed to extinction limits by us, the humans. I always put us because I'm part of that. I can't say, no, I'm doing enough to protect the species. So there are endangered species. There is a management for that. You can take up that specialization and work on that. Like in India, we have rhinoceros, we have tiger, which is endangered. We have a lot of birds, a lot of butterflies, which are endangered. We don't pay attention to these small insects and butterflies, but they are very, very important participants, or they have very important roles to play in the ecosystem and serve us. That is, services what they provide through pollination, through dispersal, through the food. We can't calculate that in revenue. Wildlife habitat management. Habitats, you have one area. It's a protected area, it's a sanctuary, it's a national park, or it's just a garden near you. It's just a small patch of forest which is working as a corridor. You can do that specialization, work as a biologist, work as a naturalist, do something there. So these are the substreams of wildlife and ecology management. Watershed management, this is to do with us. Again, we know about the Kengeri Mori. That's a river. Now we call it a sewage. How many of you are aware or know that it was a river giving pure drinking water 20 years back? We have made it so much polluted. Now we close our nose, or it stinks. So we don't want to cross it, or we don't want to go along with it. So, and if you see the end of that is in Bidadi near Toyota factory, it is so black. You'll find no fishes there. You'll find no birds there. That's the irony of that river now. The government is trying to revive, NGOs are trying to revive. As a citizen, we got to work on this. So watershed management is on that, working on rivers, lakes, the pollution of that. Coastal marine management, again, very important. We have a huge coastline. India is blessed to have one of the biggest coastline. Many of my students are working in Andamans or Sundarbans. Again, how many of us know that what coastline gave us? Not just fishes, not just oxygen. The mangroves, they are your prime protectors of winds, gusts, cyclones, and also habitat for so many animals and species of birds, insects, fishes. We've got to protect that. So if you are interested in that, dive into the sea, go for coastal marine management. Zoo management. I think nobody thinks that this is a respectable job. This is one of the best jobs. If I get a chance, I'll definitely like to serve there. Again, you can join as a forest department officer there. You can join as a researcher there. You can join as in R&D, as a veterinary doctor, as an educator there in the zoo. We do sometimes when we have free time, we go to Bannerghatta Zoo, impart our education there to the tourists walking in there. Common man sometimes, unfortunately to say, can't differentiate between leopard and cheetah. we just simply correct them there. So this is small things we can do. But as a career, there are big careers in this. Naturalist, again, we'll come back to this in detail, where Sharath is a better expert to talk on this line. Wildlife photography, filmmaking, and he has already touched. Human ecology, I feel, is the most important need of the hour, because we are the people who are impacting this. We are the humans who are impacting the imbalance in nature. So earlier it was studied under anthropology or ethnobiology. Now it is a specialized field where we are learning the impacts. Within 10 years, 20 years, we are turning forest into desert. Within 10 to 20 years, we are turning forest into barren lands. And today's pace of destruction, where we are converting area equal to football field in every 5 minutes. I'll repeat, an area equal to football field every 5 minutes into a barren land for so-called our development. That's the kind of destruction we are causing. So human ecology has to be studied. We are coming up with the cash crops in forest, like rubber, like palm for oil. So these are the things we should study. So there's a huge scope there. It's not just running after tiger is wildlife and ecology. There's everything to it. These are the details available, or the streams available in wildlife and ecology. Slightly got stuck.
Correction.
Sorry, got stuck up slightly. So when we come to the growth of this industry, not many people would have studied this or paid attention to it. It's presently growing at 10 to 20%, which unfortunately is one of the biggest industry hit by this pandemic. Nobody wants to go out. Nobody wants to travel. Nobody wants to. People like us are very rare. Sharath was 2 days back. He was in Hampi and doing safaris in Daroji. I was in Bandipur a few weeks back. We are different. So general public, they are hit badly. So is the tourism industry. But by 2030, this industry is growing at the pace of 60% or maybe more. There will be revival. There will be a bounce back. Who knows? It will be better. They will be better prepared. They'll be more responsible. They'll be more looking at sustainable tourism, where it benefits not only the businessman who is doing the or operating the tour there, helps the tourists, helps the people dependent on that, help the animals who are dependent on this protection. And this is the kind of growth in this industry. So this growth takes you where? Now we have seen these are the fields available. These are streams, substreams available. Which are the sectors? Where do I go for job? Where do I hunt? So the age-old zoology, we used to call this, if we had BSc in zoology or botany, we were masters. So general fields, I'll not touch everything: biomedical science, ecology, evolutionary biology, animal behavior, neurobiology, and there are scopes given with that. So you have these subjects and scopes. Again, veterinarians, wildlife biologists, conservationists, these are part of that. Forest department or NGOs or educators. But these subjects do have scopes. Do not think that if I take genetics, there was a big wave or drive a few years back in genetics. People always wanted to take genetics only. Now it's biotechnology. This pandemic has given a lot of opportunity to biotechnology companies. They're all jumping into vaccination development. It's growing at 300% rate. There will be times where everything has to have a balance. There'll be some industries growing faster at some time, some will slow down, other will bounce back. Sometimes manufacturing will be down, they will bounce back. So it's a give and take, but there has to be balance. Similarly, if you are into this line of life sciences, biology, zoology, and botany, you have, these are evergreen fields. Like we used to call a jack of all and master of none. If you are a scientist or science graduate, you have these fields. You've already seen about 100 plus substreams. Like in botany, you have taxonomy, ethnobiology, pathology. I was referring this ethnobiology into the human ecology earlier. Horticulture, paleobiology, which is to do with dinosaurs, phycology, palynology, lots of logies. Each one of you, those who are interested, can go in details. And there are scopes assigned to it. Again, I've highlighted only 10 to 12 good scopes. This page was close to some 86 scopes, which I had to shortlist and mix and match to make it such a small list. So taxonomist, agronomist, ecologist. You have fields in agriculture. You have fields in research and development in horticulture, biophysicists. Now even mathematics graduates are coming in bioinformatics, bioacoustics. That's a very new field, very upcoming field where you are not able to access a part of forest. You are hearing it. You're learning about that movement of animals or recognizing the animals or birds through bioacoustics. We do camera trapping. That's also part of bioinformatics. So working with artificial intelligence. So chemical industry is there. Food companies are there, pharmaceutical companies are there, biotech companies are there, forest services are there, plant resource laboratory, education institutes, nurseries, gardens, a few of the schemes, or sorry, scopes. So having these scopes, again, question is, where do I hunt? Which are the sectors or which are the companies? We come to this, where we will be highlighting on certain government organizations, certain non-governmental organizations, certain private companies, and freelancing. What is scope in each lines? Coming to government, we have Wildlife Institute of India, which is a premier company, or sorry, premier organization from Government of India, which controls and directs or guides. They set guidelines and rules for governing the forest of India. Right from plants, trees, to birds, to animals, to tigers. Even the tiger has a controlling authority there called NTSC. They have regulating body. They give guidelines on how to monitor tiger species and its subspecies around it, predator prey, the so-called the keystone species. Forest Department, State Forest Services, Sharath has already thrown some light on that. So this is an organization which is spread over the country. You have every state has State Forest Office as well as the Central Forest Office. So you can, the State Forest Office controls that state, is governed by the state government, but they report ultimately to WII or the national level. This is very interesting. The National Center for Biological Studies, I'm sure many of you will be aware that this is very much located in Bangalore, very much in our heart of the city, which is a premier educational institute in terms of biological studies. There are few students who are passed out from here, known to me. My few teachers, friends, and their kids have passed out from here and pursuing very good career in marine biology or other biology studies in national parks or abroad also. Indian Institute of Science, this is one of the best and the cream of the scientists come out here. And this is far ahead of IIT. When we say IIT is much good, I don't think so. IIT has 20,000 seats, IISc has 200 seats. To get into that 200, you got to be at a different level. Right from 12th, you can get into IISc, 2-year undergraduate courses. Again, there are about 30 odd streams in this. You have physics, you have astrophysics, you have chemistry, other fields also. In life sciences, I know Dr. Suren Verma, who is the coordinator and convener for the elephant census. He's one of the premier scientists studying elephants in India. I volunteer for him and census and studies on elephant studies. So there are a lot of opportunities associated here. Council of Scientific Research, Scientific Industrial Research, which is called as CSIR. This is the ocean. It has got about 60 branches in agriculture, in biotechnology, in genetics, in zoology, in botany, whatnot, in forestry, in horticulture. If you just visit this website, it will take you 2 days, 3 days to completely go through all the pages. Such vast ocean. Tremendous opportunities for postgraduate science graduates to look for courses and obviously careers there. Agriculture universities, again, every state has it. We pay less attention to that. We feel, no, these are boring. You'll not be in limelight, you'll not enjoy these jobs. If you are enjoying, if you love this field, go into these areas, go into this university. Do your research works, do something good, develop something good which is good for society. Your contribution will be recorded forever in the form of documentation, in form of projects or reports or citations. You do something good for the society. Zoological Survey of India, not many people know the scope on this, or there is an organization existing also like this. People know about Geological Survey of India, but Zoological Survey of India is a huge organization. I think Sharath knows quite well about it. And there's a lot of scope working in zoos in all the states. Now it's all scientific. None of these jobs are just basic jobs or you have 9-to-5 jobs. No, these are research and science-based activities, projects, jobs where you have to contribute, you have to develop, you have to find something new ways. So these are interesting lines. This is not just you do your job, you get salary. No, nobody pays your salary in government these days like that. Few departments may be there. I'll not comment on that. Fisheries, there are kids who love fishes. I'm very poor in identifying fishes. You love that field, n number of opportunities are there. Then there's a global organization called IUCN, which you all will be studying, or the teachers would have studied, International Union for Conservation of Nature, which is the global monitoring agency for all species, all biodiversity, all ecological studies, which also gives the red list of the endangered or the animals which are near to extinction, rating them separately. It has got requirement of scientists, research officers, biologists, photographers. If you search that website, you have lots of options available there. Oceanography, as I said, marine biology, this is part of it. You see every day in National Geographic and all, people working in seas, oceans, they are discovering new species till date. We have hardly explored the ocean. We developed, or we have invented or discovered hardly about 20% of the ocean life. We're still yet to discover 80%, which are the microorganisms or the dark world fishes. Geological Survey of India, to extent, scientists or science graduates have good scope there. You have in paleontology, you have in rocks and minerals. My own son is interested in that. So it's like that. If you see your child, if you see your students interested in something, give them these options, give them the platform, let them explore, let them pursue. Doesn't matter, it doesn't become medical graduate, he doesn't clear medical. That's the end of his science career. No, don't open a shop for him. Don't force him into that. Let him pursue further studies into these substreams of science. That's the main purpose of these presentations. It's not just necessary that force them into science. No, but there's beyond medical, beyond engineering and life sciences, and these are much more interesting and helpful. National Museum and Regional Museum of Natural History, I've worked with them, done projects for them, done camps for them. Wonderful, wonderful. What it tells about history of man, history of the world, to the future of the world. So we have this history, these museums. You're good, or you're interested, you're fascinated, please go and search for the career options in these museums. Now there are something called non-government organizations which are not part of government, but they assist the government. They function on their own. They have their own autonomous bodies. They have governing bodies and work in the field of various society benefits. I'm talking about mostly the organizations which are into environmental and wildlife, like Center for Environment Education. It's an age-old association or NGO which is working in the field of environment education, as the name suggests, and they have offices in 40 cities across the country. Beautiful projects and education materials they have. Very good scientists, very knowledgeable and highly regarded resource persons are there. Bombay National History Society, which is one of the first societies to be registered under NGOs. One of the age-old NGOs of India, which is beautiful. One of the pioneers in this was Dr. Salim Ali, who was the pioneer in bird or ornithology also. You can look at jobs there. They keep recruiting scientists, volunteers, interns, researchers, biologists. Ashoka Trust for Research and Environmental Education, this is very reputed organization in terms of environmental education and research based in Bangalore. They work, again, they have centers all across the country, and they're working in a lot of forests, a lot of protected areas, national parks. Nature, Environment and Wildlife Society is also a premium NGO. Wildlife Trust of India. If you go in many safaris, you'll see the jeeps written with WCSI or WII or WWF. These are the organizations which support the government in terms of education, in terms of donating the resources and conducting these studies, which benefits us as a tourist or us as a citizen to get the resources from the forest. Those are air and water, the primary resources. Center for Wildlife Studies, it's a world-renowned organization headed by Dr. Ullas Karanth and his daughter Kriti Karanth. I've again worked with them on many projects, many census, many surveys. They keep recruiting, they keep asking for people or giving jobs on portals. Aranyak is again one of the premier institutes or NGOs working in Northeast India, in Assam, Arunachal, Sikkim. Wholesale requirement or wholesale work in the field of wildlife and environment. Wildlife SOS, there are many students or volunteers coming to us. Sir, I'm a commerce graduate or a commerce student. Can I contribute as volunteering? Can I do a course? Wildlife SOS is a very good organization, again based in Bangalore. They have centers across the country. They are based in Bannerghatta. They have rescued the dancing bears, about 100 plus bears are there. They have rescued tigers, leopards. So you can work as volunteers there, and they will also teach you how to handle animals. Then you will learn the behavior of animals. Then you learn the interrelationship between animal and human behavior. Who is more dangerous? So these are the ways subtly they teach you. You see the pug marks here. These are basics to when we go to forest, we teach children about how to identify pug marks, which animal makes what kind of foot marks or pug marks we call it. Lot of wonderful NGOs are there. Beyond that, a lot of good private sector companies are there, which are upcoming, which are contributing to the society. We saw this pandemic has closed down so many organizations. Toyota Motors was closed for 2 months. Honda Motors was closed for 2 months. Plenty such organizations. Hero Motors in Pune was closed. These organizations have CSR funds. The age-old top 4, National Geographic, Discovery, Animal Planet, BBC Earth, hats off to them. We don't have to advertise for them. They are self-explanatory and they've regained or gained their popularity and their positions. They have done research and development job in the field of wildlife, ecology, environment, pollution, climate control, whatnot. Not just now, over last 150 years. There are plenty of good jobs available there as full-time, as part-time, as researchers, as volunteers, as interns. There's no limit to the scope in these things. So I was talking about the CSR funds like Toyota Motors, TVS Motors. These are pictures from Toyota Motors where they have dedicated eco-zone. Out of the 450 acres, they've dedicated 25 acres to eco-zone where they teach children. We take school children and teach them about biodiversity, about pollination, about water management, about sustainable living, about organic farming, about evolution. This is the evolution walk. We talk about sacred groves or the protected areas. So they have elements. So these are certain ecozones where we take them. And these companies have it, part of their social responsibility or the environmental responsibility. There are wonderful eco and wildlife resorts, nature resorts like Taj Safaris. My guide Sharath will throw light upon this. He has personally worked with them, so he'll give you a better idea on that. Sharath, what are you?
Okay, sure. So talking about naturalists, one of the best examples in India is this organization called Taj Safaris, which has 4 wildlife resorts in Madhya Pradesh and 1 in Nepal. So they have a very good, meaning intensive naturalist training program, which probably is the best in India. goes on for about 6 to 8 months, the training program. Once you get selected, there's quite a competitive selection program. But once you get selected, the training is amazing. You get to learn a lot, and you really will enjoy it. And then finally, you'll be given the job of a naturalist. So that's one of the best organizations I can give an example of. The training program was set up by me in 2006 for the company, so I can talk a lot about it. Because believe me, it's not just a training program to become a naturalist, but it makes you a better human being in a holistic way. Because there's so much other things which you get trained in. For example, even hosting and food and beverage, because it's a part of Taj and a South African company. So you end up doing, after driving the guests into the national park, whether it's Kana, Bandhavgarh or Pench or Panna, in the evenings, once the journey or the excursion into the national park is done with for about 6-8 hours, in the evening, the naturalists host the guests over some cocktails and also dinner. So you need to know a lot about the hosting itself. For example, you are trained to on wines, what are wines and how do they pair with food and things like that. So I'm just saying that it's like a very holistic training program, one of the best in the country. So similarly, Jungleologists and Resorts, Pagdandi, all of these good companies have a chain of wildlife resorts, and they offer very exciting and interesting jobs as naturalists. Okay, back to you, Jay.
Thank you. Sharad has also worked with Jungleologists, so he has got a good experience there of imparting training and knowledge to public there. We go to freelancers. Now people think, I'm not having a full-time job, I'm not able to earn good. There's something called satisfaction, self-motivation, self-satisfaction. You may be in corporate world, you may be in some other industry, but keep in touch if you are interested. Like I gave an example of myself. I've got a lot of friends like this who are working in HPCL, who are working in a government organization, but they take time. I've got a friend who is working with Eicher Motors. He takes time out to come out and work for society, work for nature. And he is an ornithologist. He has done a course on that. He is expert in butterflies. So there's no limit that, yes, or there's no limitation that you have to be a science graduate. You have to be a biology degree holder to get jobs. Because freelancers, you have extra time, you have 2 days a month, 2 days, 6 months, devote that. We used to keep 6 days for tiger census. And when I was into job, keeping it very clear, I need these 6 days holidays for going to jungle. That was for studies and that's census. So as freelancers, we can be outdoor nature educators, what I've been doing, what Sharath has been doing, organizing school camps, field research, projects, surveys, biologists in particular study of some area, some species, some plant, some bird, some movement, something happening in one area. So we devote our time as a freelancer. Environmental interpretation in national park sanctuaries as part of nature educator job, ecotourism resort. You can do all this as freelancing if you are not a regular or a full-time nature or wildlife worker. You're not into a job. You can work with these NGOs, see what WWF, ATRI, CWS, any other NGOs in your particular area. You will have many in your local areas. You can join them, you can keep in connect with them, look for opportunities on some volunteering, on some research work, or some courses which they time to time keep floating. Learn about that. Learn how to identify butterfly itself. We had a workshop for butterflies for teachers. It was wonderful. Now I keep getting information from teachers. Yes, I found this butterfly in my campus. They keep sending. That's the initial stages. We initiate it. The interest is generated. Then slowly, teachers take it forward, pass it on to students, and that's how it grows. Photography, as you're seeing, we use a photography for education. This is one photograph which generally I put in all my presentations. You can see this is a tiger walking in the grass. It talks about camouflaging. It talks about the predator dominance, how it works, how alert it is. So there are many times photographs which tell more story or give you facts than the words or sentences or books. So use these photographs, use this like journalists use. their photographs to portray a news through news channel. Using them, going into wildlife film. Got a friend who is a CA and a lawyer, but he's into wildlife films now. He's left that more into, he's doing a lot of research on the urban areas of Bombay, the marshlands, the mangroves of Bombay, and also he has made 4 films on elephants and tigers in India. Entrepreneurs, you don't want to do job, you don't want to do freelancing. You got a resort, you want to convert a resort, you want to convert a farmhouse into a resort. Open education center there, you are free to do that. You have the options of doing that. Collaborate with the nearby forest department, collaborate with the hotel industry there. Develop it into, but be responsible. Make it sustainable. Just profit you will get. Every business will earn you profit, but be responsible and sustainable. That is the learning we want to impart from these kind of job opportunities. So be responsible. As entrepreneurs, there are n number of options. You can open a company, give jobs to people. You are at that level, you are thinking of, yes, okay, I'll have a company where I can recruit biologists, I can recruit data entry people, I can recruit young scientists, train them, take up a field, do that. Nobody's stopping you. So these are the options available. We've seen the sectors, we've seen the courses, fields, subfields, or streams we call them. Now the question comes, how to do that? How do we do? What do we do? Which are the colleges? Again, I'm highlighting very few of them, just few of them, like the top 5 or 10, because as we go with top 50, top 100, we'll need 3 days. Wildlife Institute of India, Forest Research Institute, Govind Vallabh Pant Institute of Himalayan Environment and Development, IGNOU, that is Indira Gandhi National Open University, Acharya Ranga Agriculture University, NCBS, which we've already discussed a lot about, IIFM. This is very interesting, Indian Institute of Forest Management. I'm from Bhopal. When we were growing, we used to see tigress crossing from this campus in the corridors, because this falls in the corridor of tiger movement. And recently, about 6 months back, we came to know that there are more tigers near Bhopal than in Ratapani Sanctuary, than Satpura Tiger Reserve. That's how the animals keep moving. That's how they are disturbed by our development. So Indian Institute of Forest Management is one premier institute which teaches you forest management and wildlife management. It is in Bhopal, Madhya Pradesh. This is very unique again, Salim Ali Institute of Ornithology and Natural History, the SECON, which is one of the premier and very old into ornithology. They have courses in bird watching. In ornithology, you can learn various aspects, behavior of bird, identification of bird bioacoustics I was talking about. So they are the premier institutes in government. If you go to websites like shiksha.com or Biotechnica, you'll find the private institutes, top 10, top 50, top 100, and also courses abroad, available abroad, or foreign universities offering these courses. In biotechnology, I've not taken this topic in detail because this is a very hot topic these days, biotechnology. NCBS is one center. IITs have courses in biotechnology. IIT Madras, IIT Kanpur, IIT Mumbai. There's a portal called Swayam, if you are aware, which is held, or which is a portal organized or managed by the 7 IITs and the government and the Ministry of Environmental and Forest, which offers courses and job recruitments for environment, wildlife, and ecology. So they have a lot of portals like this. IAC, we have already discussed. JNCAR, again, not many will know, or students will know that this is placed in Bangalore, Jawaharlal Nehru Center for Advanced Research, Scientific Research. This is one of the premier institute which has been also given the authority or the license to develop COVID medicine or do research on COVID medicine from Government of India. So you can understand, out of say 50 or 100 odd institutions in India, if one in Bangalore gets it, how prestigious they are. And this is right in Bangalore. Institute of Genomics and Integrative Biology. This is on genetics and biotechnology. Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, ICAR or CSIR as we call it. This is again ocean. We have already discussed in the previous segment. This has got about 60 branches in wildlife, ecology, environment, more on agriculture, food, and crops. So you can do genetics, biotechnology. So there's a lot of scope in research, development in various fields. It's up to one's interest and stamina, how far he can go, how far he wants to learn, till when he wants to study. Learning has no age. It's only interest and stamina. So we have seen how we go about it, where to go, where to hunt for jobs, which are the sectors, which are the industries, which are the sectors, which are the colleges. What we do, what I and Sharad do to generate this interest, to motivate the kids. We carry experience of 25 years and we are professionals, we are certified, we are trained. We have imparted more than 4,000 hours of training to students. I put very humble number of 3,000. I've never counted them. I never knew that it will be someday projected like this. I've done more than 60 nature study camps for students as well as teachers. So this integrates, one is your relationship with students. You are able to relate to curriculum. You are able to make it more lively, and practicals are always better than theory. That's everybody will, I think, agree to it. Nobody will deny. The classrooms are more boring. Labs or outdoor studies or nature learning is always enjoyable. So we teach children on themes, birds, plants, insects, and give them monthly activities, give them projects. We run curriculum-based activities. The main motive is teach, guide, train, and achieve. Step by step, introducing them to theme by theme. 1 week, 1 month we'll take theme of plant, 1 month we'll take theme of insect, 1 week we'll take theme of just mutualism or symbiotic relationship, or maybe food chain, depending on age groups from 7 to 18. We have the modules, and then it gets converted into outreach, where we take them on field projects, national park, sanctuary visits, eco zones, as I showed you the pictures of Toyota. And this is in Satpura Tiger Reserve during last December, January. So you can see we're talking about tree. Now we're not just talking about tree, we're talking about tree, ants, roots, aphids, air, water, everything. What will happen if the tree falls? What will happen if, where are these roots going? Where are these burrows going? Which animals live in there? So it's all that we teach outdoor, which is much better imprinted on a child's brain, rather than telling them theory and mugify. You just mug up things, you forget after your exam, because you're learning to only pass the exam. You're not learning with the purpose of carrying that knowledge throughout your life, carry that interest. Now, the pandemic has hit us also very badly, as we are not able to go as often as we like to go into forest and breathe fresh air, take fresh oxygen. So we have designed a lot of online modules. We do it yourself videos and worksheet support. And these are certified programs. Children don't get certificate without completing the projects. The best part is it gives them a break from the monotonous screen visualization or looking at the screen in the regular classes. I'm not against teachers or schools here. Don't take me otherwise. But yes, this is an exercise, or these are the worksheets, projects, which relaxes them, which refreshes them, teaches them good things about nature, also increases their patience, gives them a break from regular teachings. So we have these kind of modules running in a lot of schools. As I've told you, these are all fun-based activities and exploration. One side education goes on, one side learning goes on, one side the subject is taught about ecology or themes and wildlife and all. There's other side to it. There's a subtle learning. There's a subtle learning of soft skills, which we ignore or overlook. This is the best part of our trainings. This is the best part of our modules or programs. We teach, all modules have teamwork. There's no individual activity. It develops confidence. It is developing patience. And you know, when you expose children to nature, it develops their personality. It makes them happy. It improves their thinking ability. It improves their communication skills, interpersonal skills. More than anything, it adds and makes them more sensitive and responsible towards nature. So that is the main theme or the main teachings of these programs, or the main learnings from these programs, what we want to convey to children. These are some of the photographs of our camps programs. I would request you to keep an eye on this kid, Aditya, his mother, Purnima, and his father, Ganesh. They have been coming to my camp for 15 years. This kid has been coming from the age of 8, 10. And where is he today? He'll talk to you from Holland. In the next slide, he'll be talking to you. We'll just play a small video of his, 5-minute video, where he's pursuing his master's in wildlife and ecology. He went to engineering and came out. He'll tell himself. These photographs are all in tiger reserves. We don't go to artificial parks and so. We take permissions. We make sure of responsibilities, safety, and hygienes, and we teach them in natural surroundings. Teaching them about pug marks, conservation, collage works.
Started. That was when I attended my first outdoor rock climbing camp. This was my first experience with the wilderness and camping and living with basic amenities.
Jay, audio is not clear.
Audio is not clear?
No, very faint.
Year after year, I started going to different camps.
Let's increase the volume.
Just full only.
No, it's very faint.
Okay.
The really important landmark in my life was attending a nature study camp by Akhil. This was organized by Jay Sharma, who was Jay uncle to me. And I got to learn a lot about not only plants and animals and the wilderness, but also etiquette and how to behave. Years later, I even got to go to the elephant census with Jay.
I think we'll cut short the video because the sound is not so clear. Some problem there. So we'll cut this short. And before we close, there's one idea which came to my mind, which is just a suggestion to the institutes, the schools, to have a connect or the alumni. We call alumni the students which are passed out 10 years, 20 years back. The present generation who are just immediately passing, have a network with them, which colleges they are joining, what are, how are those colleges, how is the teaching there, how the faculty, what the fees like. So this will give you a fairly good ratings, or the present generation or the youngsters who want to pursue careers or looking for courses, because a lot of students come to me, sir, I want to go to wildlife, which college should I look at? I want to go to biotechnology courses. So I give them references of children who are just joined, either my friends' kids or my students. It's always good to have a one-to-one talk and then have a rating of your own, rather than trusting the media sometimes and just going by the media ratings, which gives you a good network. So we're coming to the end of this slide. There's a picture which I would request you all to look at it and think over it. It's very identical picture, very identical words, ego and eco. Which one of this suits you, or which one of you would like to be in which picture? Think over it. And with this, we come to the end. I'd thank you all. Thanks, Sahidya, for giving this opportunity. Manila ma'am and Geeta ma'am again. Thanks to you all. We're open now for some discussions and queries. We'd like to take some questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sharath and Mr. Jay, for giving us so much insight into wildlife ecology, the career path, and so on. It feels so good to see the slides and the animals, birds, and butterflies, and all. It feels so good. In fact, I stay very close to Bannerghatta National Park, just 2
Wonderful.
kilometers away from there. And every day in the morning between 4:30 and 5, we can hear the tigers roar. And
Very
you
good.
feel so good, and as you're very, very attached to the nature, you
What a
feel,
wake-up call.
yes, you feel good about it. So in today's program, it is open for the principals, teachers, as well as the students. And I'm sure there are many students today. So in case any student wish to ask any question, just unmute and you may be able to ask the question with the resource person. Any students in the audience? Yes, Shriya.
Shreya, I have a question. The deer that was shown like in this like start, what deer was it? It wasn't a spotted deer for sure. That was sure.
That's a Barasinga, or the swamp deer we call it.
This one.
That's why I gave you a clue. Yeah, that it is a very rare and endangered species. The numbers were reduced to almost 45.
Oh.
And now they have recovered to over 500. And they have been relocated. Various families are there in Satpura Tiger Reserve, in Kaziranga National Park, and in Corbett. So they are like now being distributed to other areas, so that there's a new gene pool, and they're again not threatened by disease or poaching.
But no spots on it, Shriya. You imagine the spots. Anyway, it's a Barasinga.
Barasinga, some deer. Not all deers have spots. Sambals do not have spots.
Yeah, I thought it was spotted deer until I saw no spots on it.
That's the reason I said keep the answers ready, or we'll answer it in the end.
Yeah. Any more questions from the students? You can unmute and ask the question, students. Or any more teachers in the group would like to ask any questions?
Ma'am, may I?
Yes, please, Aditya.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Sir, the government is planning on creating this environment impact assessment draft. What are your opinions on that?
Sharath, you'd like to take that?
Yeah, sure. So sadly, it is a dilution of the environmental protection laws we have. If you want me to give the broad opinion, it's a dilution, and it's going to make it easy for whoever it is, companies or mining companies or infrastructure companies, to get clearances for road projects, for whatever, electrification, railway projects through the forest areas. Already we are losing a lot of forest cover, and this pandemic should be a rude wake-up call, actually. And so in my opinion, the EIA which is being proposed is going to be a kind of a dangerous situation for us in terms of losing more forest cover.
Sir, so is there any way we can raise our voice against that?
Sure. I mean, there are many fora. Unfortunately, right now, the pandemic situation is such that one can't join a physical protest, but there are various fora. You can search and you'll find it, and you can add your opinion and send a letter to the Minister for Environment and Forests and things like that. So we're all very, very worried about it.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any more questions from the teachers?
Ma'am, may I?
Please, Riddhi.
Yeah, sir, like as you told, there's this tiger census and elephant census.
Yeah.
So what's like the age group for like attending those census? Because when I went to Nagrole Forest in Mysore, so like I had gone there recently, and they said 21 years was like the minimum age.
Yes, 21
groups.
years. You have
So
to be
like
an adult for that. It's not open to students. It is open when you are a college graduate or so. So 21 is the age limit for that. But there are reasons for that. Briefly, if I can explain, one is you should be fit enough, and you should be alert enough to take your own decisions. as a student, as a youngster, you'll be dependent on somebody. So there we go as individuals. There we go with just one guard. So we are responsible for whatever we do. Something happens to us also, we are responsible. As kids, your responsibility has to be taken by somebody. So as per the norms of the government, the age limit has been set as 21. But there are a lot of other NGOs with whom you can work.
Can I add?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Actually, the age limit should be 18. I don't know why this insisted on that. Even for the certified volunteer training program, which Jay also attended from the Karnataka Ecotourism Board, and I was doing the main part of the training, we kept the age minimum age as 18, which 18 is normally an adulthood, right? And you can even vote. So it should be 18, but some national parks may insist 21, but 18 should be actually good enough.
Okay, thank you, sir. So, and like, what's the reason for not having Black Panthers? Like, there's it's like so rare in India to find Black Panthers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because my dad had been to Kabini there, so he spotted a Black Panther, which was like so rare, but you don't get it too much. And he says that in genes, it comes like 2 generations later.
Well, actually, it's a condition of what is known as melanism, where the melanistic gene has dominated, and that gives a kind of a dark color to the whole coat. So it's actually not that rare as we think. It's made a sudden appearance in Kabini, which is unexpected in many ways. But if you go to the Western Ghats in places like Dandeli, camera traps have revealed that about 10% of all leopards there or panthers are melanistic. So Kabini one has just created the huge hype about it. And nothing like 2 generations. Once the melanistic form comes, when it sort of has cubs, male or female, it could jump to 2 or 3 generations, yes. But first of all, the melanistic form has to come. It's nothing like just 2 generations. You got it?
Yes, sir, I got it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, dear participants, the feedback form is in the chat box. Kindly fill up the feedback form. You will be receiving e-certificate in a day or 2. Link for the feedback form is given in the chat box. Kindly fill up the feedback form.
Hello, ma'am. Hello, ma'am.
Yes, yes.
Sir, Sharma sir, can I ask a question? So in the beginning, you had shown this thing full of pictures of nature and birds.
Yeah.
So the animals were not there. So can you tell the answer, sir?
You are reading about something called camouflaging.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So the large animals or the carnivores have to be dull color. Otherwise, they are very easily spotted. So they have to hide. You can see a tiger walking from a distance. It has to be camouflage. You can see a bison walking in open. You can see a crocodile. They're big animals. So generally, the large animals are, by nature, are with dull colors so that they are well hidden behind their camouflage or their surroundings. They blend well. So the prey animals are not able to spot them so easily.
Sir, actually, sorry to interrupt. Few animals have that camouflage thing, but few they have the physical adaptations like that. So they get merged with the environment.
Mostly the large animals are not having multicolors or too many colors, because the smaller species of the birds, insects have the colors also have plus genetic value.
Yes.
Significance of having those colors. Some colors are bright colors to scare away, like the tiger stripes. We see them orange, but it is not seen orange and white to the deers. It's seen as white and gray.
Yeah.
Behind those grasses.
Okay.
So they are modified or their colors help them.
Okay. Sir, and one more thing, I just want to know, you showed the picture of that camps or this thing which you organize for teachers and this thing. How will generally schools come to know about your this thing, sir? Camps being organized. So suppose if we, in case, for example, if our school is interested to join, so how to go about?
You can send me a mail. My mail ID is given there.
Okay.
And there are a lot of schools I'm working on regular basis. If the school is not in that team, we can always start programs in your school.
Okay.
Or if you want a one-time activity like a camp or so, We can do
Okay.
that. You can send me a mail and we will
Okay.
help you to organize that.
Okay.
Otherwise, there are year-long programs which we run in schools, which we prefer are much
Okay.
better to teach rather
Okay.
than one-time camp.
Okay. Okay. So can you come and this thing organize this thing for school coming to the school and giving like this?
Anytime you
Okay,
call me.
lecture. Okay. Okay.
Anytime. Day, night, Sunday, Monday, it doesn't matter.
Oh, thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Always ready and
fact,
enthusiastic.
In fact, Mr. Sharma has started online tutoring also for the children.
Yes.
In case you want to organize any workshop for your students online, please reach out to him. In case you're not getting his contact details, write to bangaloresahodaya@gmail.com. We'll be more than happy to share the details. So you can contact him directly.
Thank you, ma'am.
It's here also in the last slide.
Yeah, you can just
Contact details.
you can take the pictures of this slide.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, may I ask a question to Jay sir?
Yes, Lopamutra.
Jay sir, good
Yeah.
good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I want to ask, as you very correctly said, that it's all about following our passion.
Yeah.
So pure students from the commerce stream or humanities stream,
Yeah.
is there any scope for them in near future to follow ecology or related
Yes,
fields, or
yes,
biology
there are-
is necessity?
No. Biology is not a necessity. You can be a freelance resource person. You can volunteer. You can take up some courses along with your commerce courses. You can take up undergraduate courses on biology, maybe zoology or botany, or maybe on ecology, some course which will help you. I mean, may I know what is your exact area of interest in ecology? Are you interested in insects, birds?
Sir, basically I belong to English department and I am an English teacher.
Okay.
Though I have been an avid traveler in forests, and I am from Bengal, so you know Bengal tiger is a from Sundarbans. It's a very like it's endangered, as well as we are very proud of it. It's our national animal.
Yes.
So often students come, we belong to class 12, and 12 is a very important portal and threshold for children to get into their future. Many children have this passion to follow wildlife and later on be probably some activist or something. That is my area of interest, because children often come to ask us. So as a resource person, what possibly we can say to them, especially humanities and commerce section I am talking about.
See, ma'am, you can always start learning about nature around you first, because once you're from that background of Calcutta, West Bengal, which has got beautiful forest and beautiful animals to represent the country. And secondly, in the school, if you're having some good campus, if you're having some greenery, learn about it, interact with it, try to relate it. See, as an English teacher, you can always help the team which are following this passion of wildlife and all into storytelling, into writing, into journalism, develop that. But take up small topics. There are a lot of information, or like we always carry a book on birds. There are about 1400 species of birds in India. I know hardly 300 plus. So we carry a book. We are not learned completely. Wherever we see something new, we refer to that bird. Now that book is in the form of ebook on our mobiles, on our laptops. So have those reference things. You see something new, identify it, learn about it. Gradually you find that, yes, you have some knowledge. That's how the freelancing starts. And you can relate to the subjects like 11, 12 biology subjects. You can relate to, link to that. Like we have ecological succession, we have ecosystem services, we have biodiversity and conservation, and number of topics. So relate to them as part of your English thing and help them in those studies. So your interest
Also,
and, sorry, please.
Can I add?
Yeah.
Like we all, Jay in his presentation already pointed out, there's a lot of opportunities in NGOs, for example, as volunteers, and also naturalists. Any of the companies that refer to either Taj Safaris or others, they don't insist on you having, the students having a science degree to become a naturalist. My subject was sociology. So it's not a rigid thing about it.
Yeah, he is the best example.
Except that you get into, you can't get into IFS or SFS or some of those scientific institutions, Wildlife Institute or whatever. But there may be 30-40% of what he spoke about is available for non-science students. Like what he just said, I would also reiterate that point. Keep learning, that's all. Nobody can stop you learning just because you don't have a science background, right? And it's so accessible now, knowledge and information. So keep learning, build a passion, and you can knock on so many doors where you can succeed.
Sir, I have one more doubt.
Thank you, Sarath sir. Thank you, Manila ma'am.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Sir,
Yes, please.
what does exactly like genetics and zoology like entail? Like, what can you do in those two? Yeah.
Zoology is a broader field where right from insect to all animals you study. Genetics part of that. Genes is what? Content of a body. Life starts from cell, right? Then molecule, correct? Atom, cell, atom, molecule, then cell. Then you develop into systems. So genetics is a study of that. It's a detailed study, part of zoology. It's a specialized field. It has got scope in everything, whether it's plant genetics or animal genetics or human genetics. Even in medical, you have human genetics. The medical field is again vast. You have cardiologists, you have pediatrics, you have surgeons, you have dentists. So like that, ophthalmology. Same way, genetics is a specialized field into zoology.
Sir, I have some questions. Could I ask?
Please,
Yes,
please,
this
don't
should be
hesitate.
the last question. You can go ahead. Yes.
So basically, I do NIS in Delhi Public School, Bangalore East.
Okay.
And I haven't taken a science background, meaning I don't have maths or biology.
Okay.
But I have an interest in wildlife.
Right.
So how do I, do it?
As Sharath sir said, you have opportunities as volunteers, as interns, as guides, as naturalists in many organizations, but you keep learning about it. That's what is the brainstorming we have to do, or that's what the public image we have to, or the perceptions we have to change. Nature or wildlife is only for biology graduates. No, nature is for everybody. Commerce graduate also takes in air. You need water, you need food. It comes from nature. So we have to all be responsible, all have to learn a bit and bit. You can join courses in your school, camps in your school, learn from your surroundings, take up some topic. Like the other day when I came to meet Manila ma'am, I saw outside the window, I said, ma'am, you have beautiful tree garden. Why don't we study butterflies here? Something like that. Take up like that in your own campus.
Sir,
Also, sorry, one last thing. There are also many online courses available. There's no bar on commerce students taking those online courses on nature, wildlife, ecology, whatever.
Okay.
Good evening, sir.
Thank you so much, sir.
Welcome.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
May I ask you the last question?
Yes,
So I'm working as a teacher. So how can I want to be the volunteer in your team or in the workshops you conduct? So should I go through the school only, or just like that I can walk in or come with the group? Is it possible that way?
It is possible. It is possible both ways. One is through school, what programs we do. We take initiative, be part of the team of trainers or the administrator there. Because when we take students, we never take without teachers. We always insist on a team of 3 or 4 teachers along with the students. That's for security and social responsibility. And when we conduct our own programs outside the school or for general public, come to join.
So how do I come to know about that, sir?
If your number or your mail ID is shared, we'll keep you informed. When are these activities happening? Which areas we need volunteers? What kind of volunteers? Where you can support, where you are interested, you can join. You have time limitations. Based on that, you can always decide and join.
Should I send a test mail to you, sir?
You can. You
for
can.
the same?
With your interest, you can always send that. We'll keep in our data bank and always come back to you.
Sir, I have a doubt.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thank you.
Yes.
Sir, I have a doubt. Can I ask?
Anytime, please. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Can you please tell the difference between fisheries and marine, biologist?
You're good. Very good. Now, I'm not going to answer in very detail. in very broad way, very short way I'll answer. Fisheries is to with fishes. Now fisheries, types of fishes or type of surrounding they're living, habitat they're living in, rivers, lakes, freshwater, or the saltwater. Marine or the ocean based, that's a vast area. Again, you are learning about not just fishes, also about the water, also about the plantains, also about the oxygen, also about the pollution, everything there. Fisheries, you have to do specialization if you have to go into these other areas. So this is, I think, the way we differentiate fisheries. It is a part of it's a study limited to the habitat or the types of fishes there.
And usually, can I add?
Yep.
Usually fisheries has to do with commercial fisheries, like freshwater and marine, whereas oceanography is a much broader subject. It includes corals, it includes, like you said, the ocean pollution, and it's a much wider subject, oceanography.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sharat and Mr. Jain, for this informative and interesting session. I know if you leave the window open, children will go on asking. There is no end to it, but such an interesting topic it is.
Sure.
And I'm sure the teachers